The first transport arrived at the academy just before artificial dawn. Its shadow stretched across the metallic ground as the ramp lowered, releasing students from dozens of worlds. Tall ones, armored ones, creatures with claws, horns, thick hides, and glowing eyes. They walked with confidence, some laughing, some already sizing up rivals. Then the last passenger stepped out. He was human. Ethan Hale paused at the top of the ramp, gripping the strap of his small pack. Compared to the others, he looked unfinished. No natural armor, no claws, no extra limbs, just a thin frame wrapped in a standard-issue Academy uniform that looked too loose on him. Whispers started almost immediately. "That's it," one reptilian cadet hissed. "A soft species." Another laughed, a deep clicking sound. Ethan heard none of their languages clearly, but he understood tone well enough. He kept his eyes forward and walked down the ramp. The academy grounds were massive, designed for war training and survival across galaxies. Towers rose into the sky. Training fields stretched farther than he could see. This place had produced commanders, conquerors, and legends, and now somehow him. They were lined up within minutes. Hundreds of cadets in neat rows, organized by species size. Ethan stood alone at the far end, looking like a mistake that had not yet been erased. An instructor stepped forward, massive, four-armed, scarred. His voice boomed through translators. "You are here because your species believes you are worthy," the instructor said. "This academy does not care about belief, only results." Eyes swept over the crowd. Day 1, assessment. The first test was simple, they said, endurance. They were sent running across the outer ring of the academy, a wide track built with shifting gravity. Some sections pulled harder, others twisted balance. It was meant to break the unprepared. The larger species surged ahead, long strides, powerful legs. Ethan ran behind them, breathing hard, already feeling the burn in his chest. Gravity shifted suddenly. Several cadets adapted instantly. Ethan stumbled but did not fall. He shortened his stride, leaned forward, and kept moving. Laughter followed him. "Look at him struggle. He won't last 5 minutes." Ethan focused on the ground. One step, then another. He did not try to catch up. He tried not to stop. By the halfway mark, his lungs burned. Sweat soaked his uniform. His vision narrowed. He saw others resting, their bodies built for this. Some had already finished and were watching. When he finally crossed the line, he collapsed to one knee. Silence followed, not respect, surprise. The instructor looked at him for a long moment. "You finished," the instructor said. "Slowly, but you finished." That only made the laughter louder. The second test came without rest. Combat basics. No weapons, no powers, controlled environment. Ethan was paired with a cadet twice his height, skin like stone, arms thick as pillars. The match was supposed to be educational. It lasted 12 seconds. Ethan hit the ground hard, air knocked from his lungs. The other cadet stepped back, unimpressed. "Pathetic," someone said. Ethan forced himself up. His body screamed at him to stay down. He ignored it. They ran more tests. Strength, reaction, pain tolerance. He failed most of them. By midday, the nickname had already spread. Soft human. Day 1 dropout. Why is he here? During the break, Ethan sat alone near the edge of the training field, drinking water slowly so he wouldn't throw up. His hands shook, but he clenched them until they stopped. He had expected this. Earth's briefing had been honest. Humans were behind in physical standards, biologically weaker than many galactic species, but humans had still been invited. That had to mean something. A shadow fell over him. Ethan looked up and froze. She was taller than him, but not massive. Her skin was a deep blue-gray, smooth but marked with faint glowing lines that shifted slowly, like living symbols. Her eyes were gold, sharp, and unsettlingly calm. Her presence made nearby cadets unconsciously step back. She was important, that much was obvious. She looked down at him, expression unreadable. "You are injured," she said. "Just tired," Ethan replied. His voice sounded small to his own ears. She tilted her head slightly. You continued when retreat was logical, he shrugged. Didn't see retreat listed. That seemed to amuse her just a little. Before Ethan could say anything else, a group of cadets approached. The stone-skinned one from earlier stood at the front. "You're blocking the path," the alien said to her, then looked at Ethan. "Move, human." Ethan opened his mouth. She spoke first. "No," the word was quiet, final. The stone-skinned cadet frowned. "He is nothing." "He is mine," she said. The effect was immediate. The air changed. Whispers died, bodies stiffened. Several cadets took a step back without realizing it. Ethan's brain stalled. "Mine," the stone-skinned cadet's eyes widened slightly. "You claim him." "I do." "That is absurd. He is weak." She stepped forward, not aggressive, not defensive, certain. "Then his weakness is now my concern," she said. "And yours is knowing when to stop." Silence stretched. Finally, the cadet bowed his head slightly and stepped away. Others followed. Ethan stared up at her, heart pounding for an entirely new reason. "I didn't," he started. "You did not ask," she finished. "Correct." "Why?" he asked. She studied him again, more closely this time, not his size, his posture, his eyes. "Because you endure," she said, "and because you do not beg." She turned and walked away. After a few steps, she paused. "Stand up, human," she said without looking back. "Day one is not finished." Ethan stood. From that moment on, no one laughed openly. They watched instead. The final assessment was team-based. Groups of mixed species were assigned a tactical puzzle involving limited resources and simulated threats. Ethan was placed into a group that clearly did not want him. They ignored his suggestions at first. Then the simulation turned against them. Their strongest member was isolated. Their fastest misjudged timing. Panic spread. Ethan spoke up again, louder this time. "If we reroute power and use the terrain, we can funnel them," he said. "No time," someone snapped. "There is," Ethan said. "You're just not used to thinking small." They didn't listen. They failed. In the review, the instructor replayed the simulation, paused it at the moment Ethan spoke. "Explain," the instructor said. Ethan did. The instructor nodded slowly. "You saw what others did not," he said. "That matters." The gold-eyed alien watched from across the room. When the day finally ended, Ethan returned to his assigned quarters, exhausted beyond words. He collapsed onto the narrow bed and stared at the ceiling. His body hurt. His pride hurt more. But something else had changed. Someone had chosen him, not out of pity, out of belief. Outside, the academy lights dimmed, signaling rest cycle. Day one was over, and the galaxy had already made its first mistake, laughing at a human who refused to stop standing up. Part 2. 1600 words Kaleko, or interesting Hunachea, or third-person style, Ma Lekni Ha, or simple basic English Ka, or violated free Hona Chai. Without short heading, the next cycle began before Ethan's muscles had fully stopped aching. A sharp tone echoed through the dormitory, pulling him out of shallow sleep. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then the soreness returned all at once and memory followed. The academy. Day 2. He sat up slowly, letting his feet touch the cold floor. Around him, other cadets were already awake. Some moved easily, their bodies built for constant strain. Others stretched thick limbs or flexed plated skin. A few glanced his way, then looked away just as quickly. No laughter this time. That unsettled him more than the mocking had. As Ethan stepped into the corridor, he felt it again, that strange pressure, like eyes following him even when he could not see them. Whispers passed between alien cadets in languages his translator only half caught. "That's the one." "Yesterday showed us who you are," the instructor said. "Today will show us who you become." Teams were reassigned. Ethan noticed something immediately. He was no longer placed at the edge. He was slotted into the center of a mixed-species unit, fast movers, heavy fighters, ranged specialists. And her. She stood across from him, calm and composed, as if the attention around them did not exist. In the daylight, the glowing lines along her skin were clearer, flowing slowly like living patterns. She caught him looking and held his gaze without challenge. "My name is Sarah," she said through the translator. "You will address me as such." "Ethan," he replied. "Just Ethan." Sarah nodded once. "You belong to my unit now." Belong. The word still sat strangely in his mind. Their task for the day was a long-range navigation and survival drill. They would be dropped into an artificial wilderness zone filled with environmental hazards and unpredictable threats. No instructors, limited communication, one extraction point. Failure meant repeating the trial under harsher conditions. As the transport carried them out, tension built inside the unit. One of the larger cadets, a winged being with sharp eyes, finally spoke. "Why is the human here?" it asked, not bothering to hide irritation. "He slows us," Sarah answered calmly. "Then ensure he does not." All eyes turned to Ethan. He met them without lowering his head. "I won't get in the way," he said, "but I won't be silent either." That earned him a few skeptical looks. The drop was rough. The ground shifted under artificial gravity, simulating unstable terrain. Tall metallic trees rose around them, their surfaces reflecting false sunlight. The air was thin enough to make breathing uncomfortable for Ethan, but survivable. They moved quickly at first, following the most obvious route. That was their first mistake. Ethan noticed it when the terrain began to narrow too neatly. Paths that looked safe, cover that felt placed. "This is a funnel," he said. The winged cadet ignored him. Moments later, the ground erupted. Simulated predators burst from concealment, forcing the unit into scattered defense. The heavy fighters handled most of it, but energy reserves drained faster than expected. When it was over, they had lost time and resources. "This zone adapts," Ethan said, catching his breath. "It reacts to predictable movement." One of the cadets snarled. "You assume too much." "I observe," Ethan replied. "There's a difference." Sarah watched him closely but said nothing. As they moved deeper into the zone, conditions worsened. Temperature dropped. Sensors malfunctioned. Visibility fell. The unit slowed. That was when panic started. A sudden simulated storm hit, disrupting navigation. The winged cadet went down hard after misjudging wind shear. Two others argued over which path to take. Ethan stepped forward without realizing it. "Stop," he said, louder than he intended. They all looked at him. "We're reacting instead of thinking," he continued. "This place wants us divided. If we slow down and map our movement manually, we can stabilize." "You think you know better than us," one snapped. "No," Ethan said honestly. "I think differently, that's all." Sarah finally spoke. "We will try his method." No one challenged her. They adjusted, marked positions, used simple tools instead of advanced tech. Progress was slower but steadier. Hours passed. By the time they reached the extraction zone, they were exhausted but intact. When the simulation ended, silence filled the debrief chamber. The instructor reviewed their path, highlighting the shift in strategy halfway through. "Explain the change," the instructor said. Sarah looked at Ethan. "He advised it." The instructor turned his gaze to the human. "Why did you speak when others did not listen?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because silence would have been easier," he said. "And easier usually gets you killed." The instructor studied him, then nodded. That was all. After dismissal, Ethan found Sarah waiting near the corridor junction. "You disrupted hierarchy," she said. "Sorry," he replied instinctively. She tilted her head. "I did not say it was wrong." They walked together in silence for a time. "Why did you claim me?" Ethan asked again quietly. Sarah stopped. "When my people choose," she said, "we do so because we see potential others ignore. You do not dominate, you adapt. You endure pressure without breaking." She looked directly at him. "That is dangerous." "To you?" Ethan asked. "To everyone," she answered. Training intensified over the following cycles. Combat drills, strategy simulations, stress scenarios designed to overwhelm. Ethan struggled physically. He always would. But mentally he began to shine. In simulations where brute force failed, he found alternate solutions. When faced with superior enemies, he avoided direct conflict entirely. Instructors began asking him questions during reviews. Some cadets grew frustrated, others grew curious. One evening, during a close-quarters exercise, a rival cadet deliberately pushed Ethan beyond safety limits. The hit sent him crashing into a barrier. Pain exploded through his side. The room went still. Ethan forced himself to stand. Before he could speak, Sarah was there. Not violent, just present. "That will not happen again," she said. The rival backed away. Later, alone in the medical bay, Ethan sat quietly as injuries were treated. Sarah stood nearby, arms folded. "You did not retaliate," she said. "I wanted to," Ethan admitted, "but that would have proven their point." She considered that. "Restraint is strength among humans." "Sometimes," Ethan said, "sometimes it's survival." That night, rumors spread again, but they were different now. The human wasn't just claimed. He was changing the way the Academy thought, and that made some very powerful beings uncomfortable. From a balcony high above the training fields, unseen observers watched data streams scroll across glowing displays. One human. Minimal physical capability, unacceptable adaptability. "Continue observation," a voice said. "If this continues, we may need adjustments." Far below, unaware, Ethan returned to his quarters and collapsed onto his bed. He was exhausted, bruised, still very human. But for the first time, he felt something close to belonging. And somewhere in the academy, plans were already shifting around him. Part 3. 1600 words ka leko, or interesting hunachea, or third-person style, ma lekni ha, or simple basic English ka, or violated free hona chai. Without short heading, the warning came without words. Ethan felt it during morning drills, a pressure in the air that had nothing to do with gravity or weather. Cadets moved as usual, but something underneath had changed. Conversations stopped when he walked past. Instructors watched longer than before. Data drones hovered where they had never hovered before. He was being measured, not as a student, as a variable. Sarah noticed it too. She said nothing at first, but she stayed closer than usual, positioning herself just half a step behind him, not in front. It was a small change, but an important one. "You feel it," she said quietly as they moved between training zones. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Like the rules are thinner." "They are," Sarah said. "When systems fail to predict behavior, they tighten control." That didn't make him feel better. The day's assignment was announced without explanation. A live complex scenario, no prior briefing, no mixed teams, individuals only. Murmurs spread instantly. Solo trials were rare, dangerous, designed to expose limits. Ethan's name appeared near the bottom of the list. Some cadets looked relieved it was not them, others looked satisfied. Sarah's gaze hardened. "This is not standard." "No," Ethan said. "This is a test." They were separated before she could say more. The chamber he was led into was circular and empty, its walls smooth and dark. The floor pulsed faintly beneath his boots. A voice filled the space, neutral and emotionless. "Assessment begins now." The world changed. The floor vanished. Ethan fell, then landed hard on uneven ground. Pain shot through his legs. He rolled, instinct taking over, and came up crouched. The environment around him was harsh and unfamiliar. Jagged stone formations. Low visibility, air thick and heavy. His wrist device flickered. Minimal data, no map, alone. He took a breath, slow and controlled. Panic would not help. Movement came quickly. Shadows shifted. Shapes circled just beyond sight. Simulated predators, but designed to kill if mistakes were made. Ethan did not run. He moved sideways instead, keeping obstacles between himself and open ground. He picked up a piece of stone, tested its weight, then another. When the first creature lunged, he threw, not to hit but to distract. The creature turned, confused. Ethan slipped past, heart pounding, muscles screaming. Minutes stretched into hours. The environment changed without warning. Heat replaced cold. Gravity shifted slightly, just enough to ruin balance. Ethan adapted, slowed down, counted steps. Rested when he could, even when fear told him to move. At one point, exhaustion nearly took him. He collapsed behind a ridge, chest heaving, vision swimming. He thought of Earth, of why humans had survived so long on a fragile world, not because they were strongest. Because they refused to quit. He stood up again. Elsewhere, Sarah stood in a control chamber she was not supposed to be in. Screens surrounded her, showing Ethan from multiple angles. An instructor blocked her path. "You are not permitted." "I am claimed," she said calmly. "And you are observing a failure of ethics." The instructor hesitated. "This is within parameters." "No," Sarah replied. "This is escalation." The instructor turned back to the screens. Ethan had reached a narrow ravine. The ground vibrated. Something large moved beneath the surface. The simulation adjusted. Threat level increased. Sarah's hands clenched. "They are pushing him past projected limits," she said. "That is the point," the instructor replied. In the ravine, the ground exploded upward. A massive creature emerged, all armored plates and snapping limbs. It roared, the sound shaking the air. Ethan ran, not away. Through. He sprinted toward the creature, then veered sharply at the last second, sliding down a slope the larger body could not follow easily. The creature turned too late, crashing into stone. Ethan did not stop. He used momentum, pain, fear, everything, turning them into speed. He spotted a narrow opening ahead. Too small for the creature, barely large enough for him. He dove. The impact knocked the breath from him. He crawled forward, ignoring the burning in his arms, until the space widened just enough to let him collapse. Behind him, the creature roared again, then withdrew. Silence followed. Ethan lay there, shaking, staring at the rock inches from his face. He laughed. It came out broken and weak, but real. He was still alive. The simulation ended abruptly. Light flooded the chamber. The ground flattened. Medical drones rushed in, surrounding him. Ethan tried to stand and failed. He didn't fight it this time. He had nothing left. When he woke, he was in the medical bay, clean, quiet. Sarah stood beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. "You were not meant to survive that," she said finally. "I figured," Ethan replied hoarsely. "They altered the scenario mid-trial," she continued. "They wanted to see what would break you." Ethan closed his eyes. "Did it work?" "No," Sarah said. "It scared them." News spread quickly. The solo trial had been observed by instructors, analysts, and academy leadership. Data showed something they did not like. Human adaptability did not plateau. It spiked under pressure. Some cadets avoided Ethan now. Others approached him carefully, with questions instead of insults. One approached him openly during recovery exercises. "You should not exist like this," the cadet said, not unkindly. Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Sarah's status changed as well. Her open association with him drew attention, not all of it welcome. "You risk your standing," one of her own species warned her. "I choose my risks," Sarah replied. The instructors met in private. "The human cannot be allowed to set precedent," one said. "He already has," another replied. "Then we contain him." A final evaluation was scheduled. Joint combat scenario, multiple squads, live variables, no restrictions. It was framed as a test of unity. It was not. When Ethan was briefed, he recognized the signs immediately. Unbalanced teams, conflicting objectives, too many unknowns. "This is a trap," he said quietly. "Yes," Sarah replied, "but one we can use." She did something unexpected. She asked him for a plan, not suggestions. Leadership. Ethan took a deep breath and began assigning roles, not based on strength but on behavior. Who reacted fast, who panicked, who adapted. Some resisted, most listened. The scenario began, chaos followed, and then order. Ethan moved constantly, adjusting plans, redirecting efforts. He did not fight much himself. He didn't need to. He made others better. When the scenario ended, the outcome was undeniable. The teams that followed human strategy succeeded. The ones that did not failed. Silence filled the chamber. The academy had its answer. Humans were not weak links. They were force multipliers. As cadets dispersed, Sarah stood beside Ethan, her expression calm but her eyes bright. "They can no longer pretend," she said. Ethan nodded, exhaustion settling deep into his bones. "What happens now?" She looked out across the academy. "Now," she said, "they decide whether to learn from you or fear you." Ethan suspected he already knew the answer. Part 4. 1600 words Kaleko or interesting Hunachea or third-person style, Ma Lekni Ha or simple basic English Ka or violated free Hona Chai. Without short-heading, the decision came quietly, which made it more dangerous. Ethan noticed the change before anyone told him. Training schedules shifted, instructors rotated, access permissions updated without explanation. The academy did not punish him, did not praise him, and did not remove him. It watched. That, more than anything, made Sarah uneasy. "They are adapting to you now," she said as they walked the upper paths overlooking the training fields. "Institutions do not fear strength, they fear influence." Ethan rested his hands on the railing. Below them, cadets trained in mixed groups, copying patterns that had once been unusual. Human-style spacing, human-style fallback points, human-style communication. "They already changed," he said quietly. "Yes," Sarah replied, "and that cannot be undone." The final scenario was announced that same cycle, not as a test, as a demonstration. An external threat simulation would be introduced into the academy's outer defense grid. Cadets would respond in real time. Instructors would observe. Leadership would judge. Officially, it was a learning exercise. Unofficially, it was a verdict. Ethan was assigned no formal rank, no command title, no authority. And yet, when the alert sounded, eyes turned to him. The first reports were confusing. Multiple breach points, fast-moving hostile units. Defense systems responding too slowly, too complex for a single solution. "Split response will fail," Ethan said, scanning the incoming data. "They're testing coordination, not firepower." Sarah stood beside him. "Then speak." Ethan hesitated. This was the line. Once crossed, there was no stepping back. He crossed it. "All units," he said into the open channel, "form layered response. Do not chase, contain and redirect. Use terrain, use each other." Some instructors stiffened. Cadets listened. The academy's defense grid came alive, not with brute force but with movement. Units flowed instead of clashing. Strong species anchored positions. Fast ones relayed information. Smaller ones slipped through gaps, setting traps and delays. The hostile simulation adapted. So did the response. At one breach point, a heavy unit faltered. Ethan rerouted support before the failure spread. At another, communication lag threatened collapse. He simplified it, reduced commands, trusted initiative. Minutes passed, then more. The hostile forces slowed. Then stopped, then withdrew. Silence followed. No cheers, no celebration, just the hum of systems powering down. In the command chamber, Academy leadership reviewed the data in real time. Projections updated. Risk models recalculated. One conclusion appeared again and again. Human presence increased overall survival rates, not by domination, by cohesion. "That should not be possible," one leader said. "It is," another replied, "and it will spread." Sarah watched the numbers with calm satisfaction. "They see it now." "Yes," Ethan said. "But seeing doesn't mean accepting." The formal review took place hours later. Ethan stood alone in the center of the chamber, Sarah just behind him. Instructors lined the walls. Observers filled the upper tiers. "You exceeded expectations," the lead instructor said. "That was not difficult," Ethan replied. A few murmurs rippled through the room. "You disrupted established doctrine," the instructor continued. "Yes," Ethan said, "because it didn't fit the problem." "Your species lacks physical dominance," another voice said. Ethan nodded. "We know, And yet you led, the voice pressed. I didn't lead, Ethan replied. I listened. Then I connected what I heard. Silence followed. Finally, the lead instructor spoke again. What do humans want from this academy? Ethan thought carefully. To learn, he said. And to belong, same as everyone else. And if your methods change us, the instructor asked. Ethan met his gaze. Then maybe you needed changing. The chamber remained quiet for a long time. Then the instructor nodded once. Assessment complete. No punishment followed. No reward either. But when Ethan left the chamber, the way cadets looked at him had changed completely. Not with fear, with recognition. Later that cycle, Sarah found him alone near the edge of the academy grounds, watching the artificial sky shift colors. You are no longer mine in the way you were, she said. Ethan smiled faintly. That sounds ominous. It is growth, she replied. Claiming is meant to protect potential. You no longer require protection. So what now? He asked. She stepped closer, standing beside him rather than behind or in front. Now, she said, I choose you again, not because you are weak, but because you are human. Ethan exhaled slowly. That's better. Word spread beyond the academy. Human cadets in other institutions reported changes, requests for exchange programs, new doctrines under review, old assumptions questioned. Some species resisted, others adapted. That was always how it went. Ethan continued training. He still lost most physical contests. He still hurt after drills. He was still, by many standards, unimpressive. But when situations grew complex, uncertain, or desperate, others began to look for him. Not because he was the strongest, but because he endured. On the final night of the cycle, the Academy broadcast a simple update across its internal network. Human classification revised. From support species. They were afraid, she replied. I don't think they knew it yet, Ethan said. Sarah looked out over the academy where dozens of species trained together under shifting stars. They will, she said, because humans do not arrive loudly. She glanced at him. They arrive permanently. And somewhere beyond the academy, the galaxy began to adjust its expectations, slowly realizing that the weakest-looking species it had ever welcomed was about to change how survival itself was understood.